How much do you love selling? If that seemed like a wicked laugh, it was. This is Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Fitness Marketing Mastery, where I share marketing and sales strategies that are easy, enjoyable, even fun, so you can build a life and a business that you love without sleazy, salesy, pushy strategies. Listen, I know after 37 years of working in the fitness industry myself, none of us who love health or fitness or wellness ever got into the profession because we loved selling. In fact, it was potentially for you too a slap in the face when you realized if I can't sell, if I can't be in charge of selling, I really can't be in charge of controlling how much money I make. I realized that after about 6 months in my first real paying job, by 9 months, I'd already quit and had decided to go back to school. Well, long story short, where I'd ended up thinking, or started out thinking, going back to school, I was going to switch majors, go back into graphic design, and to heck with all of this fitness because I couldn't make money doing it. Now, mind you, this was back in 1988. Well, I lasted about a semester and then I changed my major again, and fitness, health, and physiology pulled me back. It was definitely where I was meant to be. And if irony could have any other laughs, I also ended up working for the exact same boss that I had left before 9 months was up in my first stint. How ironic is that? There's more there, but I'll go into that story later. This episode is all about how to sell and really not going into the nuances of the entire presentation, but talking about little details about when, where, where do you start that conversation? When do you have it? And what words or what might be an effective way to plant seeds early in a conversation? And how do you ultimately get to the presentation? So, listen, there's a lot of things we can cover here, and this is going to become an entire series. In fact, as I was planning this episode, I thought this could easily be two parts. It's really about how to present your fee or make an offer. And these two parts are where, meaning what format do you use, more on that in a second, and when and what exactly do you say. So I'm breaking this down into a two-parter because when I went to unpack the content, I knew I'd leave you hanging and leave important considerations out if we don't address it one step at a time. So, in this episode of how to present your fee, it's about where you're going to do that I'm going to address first. I'm talking about your customer journey from the time they find you and they follow you here. The cost of your program or your service also matters as far as when and where you present that. If you're charging a big ticket item, say you're charging $5,000 to work with a client for 90 days. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'd love to be charging that, that day can come as soon as you make your mind up that it's here. So think about the price of your service or your product, and I'll tell you about the breakdown. But the more expensive in general your services are, the longer time you're going to need to spend with a prospect before you make the offer. They have to, what the old days we'd say, know, like, and trust you, but they also have to feel like you. They need to feel as if they are a little bit like you. They can see the you, or in you, they can see the person they want to be or become. And they may not capture that with a short time investment or an email here or there. you may have to get them in person on a call or on a masterclass with you. So we'll talk about each of those. So, before you go too far thinking about how to sell, make absolutely sure you know who you're selling to. Are you selling to somebody who's like super budget minded, super economical, penny pinchers? They'll spend it if they think there's value in it and they'll save for it and it means a lot to them. Or are you selling to somebody who can afford more luxury items? You really need to nail that down because one product or service and the way you present the product or service you have is not going to appeal to both of those types of people. Your words, the selection of images that you use would all be very different. And the motivation each of those people has is also very different. One may be much more status oriented, while the other is much more giving and serving. And this may serve a bigger mission for them of taking care of themselves, means that they're taking care of their family and role modeling, and it's better and healthier for their entire household. That's two different sales pages. So think about who you serve. Who do you love working with? What describes that person most? Doesn't mean you absolutely won't sell to someone else, but you're going to have to use the right words for that one ideal person to sell a majority of your revenue funds. So think about that very carefully. All right. So think about, are you selling a low cost item? And usually that's something less than $100. So if something is $97 or $99, which are the two price points, and we could debate on which of those works, there's historically, it flips every once in a while. 97 seems to work better for a while, and then it'll be 99. But the point is, less than $100, usually that's something somebody can make their own mind up. They don't have to ask somebody. They don't have to say, I'll think about it. They either want it or they don't. And in an online product, somebody could buy a $99 product without much thought or even knowing you very long, as long as it resonates with them and you didn't screw it up. So there's a whole lot less thought process. But if you're selling something that costs, say, $297 to $497, now you're making them think just a little bit more, depending on who they are. $997, just under $1,000. There's a little thought process to that, but if you were talking about something that is high value, high touch, a lot of customization, that's very well worth it. But now we're talking bigger. So if we're talking high ticket item, and you might think of that depending on where you live, your geographic area, what's acceptable, that might be $1,500 to $4,000, or you could be talking about a bigger ticket price, like a $5,000 or higher. And in terms of personal training, most of the time you're probably going to be below that simply because people will buy maybe a year at a time and their total investment may be a couple $1,000s. But consider what it is, who you're selling to, number one, consider your price, and then you've got a better idea of, all right, how long will I take? How many things do I need in place in order to have a best relationship with that person before I present? So here are different platforms you can use to sell your services. So low cost items, as I mentioned, those can be sold via email. That's going to look like this usually. Somebody's going to see you online, stumble across your website, maybe find a YouTube video, and then come to your website. They're going to opt in for some kind of juicy freebie. So I'm talking to you right now about your customer journey. You need to have these things in place. So some outreach, right, on social media so they can find you, or articles on your site, or YouTube videos, which are both searchable, right? Search engine findable things. and they find their way to you. They may opt in for some juicy freebie because if you don't have them on your email list, the chance of you selling them is much, much lower. So you need to have some reason for them to get in. And trust me, friend, it is not your newsletter. They're not excited about that. So, what is it? What problem can you solve in a quick freebie that probably could be consumed in 5 minutes or less? Can you give them a 5 minute stretch that they could do daily to relieve tight lower backs? That probably would be a very popular freebie. So think about a freebie that would attract your ideal customer. Make sure you've got that there. And you could sell after a few emails and say, because you got in, you like this, you're talking about the freebie. And then in the next email, you're talking about the problem a little bit more, your problem or relating to them. Maybe there's one more email, and then you say, by the way, if you like that, this has been valuable, this is your next logical step, and you pitch the product or service. The higher your price point, though, the less time your customer has known you, the more likely you're going to want to sell one of these ways: a phone consultation, a master class, or a live in-person consultation. Now, you may be doing face-to-face meetings, you may not, but you could still call face-to-face these days on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime, depending on your client. So which one and when? A phone consultation could be directly from, say, an email page or a website page where they've landed. They're learning about you and that you do coaching, for instance, or you offer programs, but maybe you're on the fence and you're not clicking the button that says check out. The other button there might be still not certain, click a call. And that button maybe could show up later with a second visit, depending on plugins that you use on your site. But a phone consultation can also follow a masterclass. So a very small percent of customers make up their minds right away. They buy on the spot. Potentially, I don't know about you, but they're me. So I'm a rapid action taker. If I see something, I know I want it, and it's the right price point, like a $97 item, I will probably decide right then and there either I want it or I don't. And I'm not going to think about it anymore if I don't want it, but if I do want it, I'm going to buy it. And yet, 85% of people need more time. They need more decision making time. They need to think it over. They literally do need more information. They're more analytical, and that's okay as long as you continue to nurture them. So, after a masterclass, you should have follow up emails, maybe two, maybe three, maybe five, for those people who are slow action takers. And I can tell you, after having started over at 49, so right now I'm 57, my business really, in the last 8 years, I've had a lot of people say, I've been following you on YouTube for 2 years. And they'll be in a program right then, but it's the first time. They've just been lurking, listening, reading blogs, maybe watching videos, and finally they decided the stars collided or the timing was right for them. Who knows what that takes? But we have those people that take that much time to actually get started. So you want to be sure you're still nurturing them. Don't ignore them. Now I'm going to come back just for a second to the phone consultation. If you do have an option for someone to book a phone consultation on your website, I want you to be very careful. And I want you to be very careful because I know this firsthand. I've had this happen by accident, that we actually had an entire list of actually a lot of people in one of my strength training programs got into a tag, is what we call it. So on our customer relationship management provider, which is Infusionsoft, which is what I use to send my emails, but that tracks sales and customer value over a lifetime, how much they've ever spent with you, keeps track of all they've ever bought with you. For some reason, they were tagged for consultation when they purchased a membership following their 12-week program. And I had hundreds of consultations that I did not want to do and didn't need to do because they'd already purchased. But you never want to be in that position. Now, did I learn a lot? Again, but got refreshed about what's the most important thing for my customers? Absolutely. So is that time well spent? Absolutely. It's like primary research. But you want to make sure that you're not just somebody wants to pick your brain appointment. So your time is far too valuable, even if you're just getting started and you do have time. You want to make sure that you set yourself up appropriately, that if you have the open ability for somebody to book their own phone consultation, that they are well screened before they ever are able to book. They fill out a customer survey. So here's what I mean by that. So instead of actually being able to book on your calendar, when they click a link that says book a call here, they will first go to a survey. And in that survey, they will be asked how serious they are about getting started, what they want, how many sessions, how long, what do they think will serve them better, 3 months or 6 months. Those are my two packages for private coaching. By the way, yours might be something different, but I have them set up under the impression and belief this is not a call to decide if they're working with me, it's to decide how, which package, and when we're getting started. And so, someone who's not a good candidate, who either can't afford your services and doesn't know what they cost yet, or isn't really ready to make up their mind, they just want to pick your brain for some idea, will usually abandon that survey, not save it, not submit it, and therefore not get to book a call. So the way my survey works is they have to go through and submit that survey. Landing on the thank you page is where they get to book the call. Tricky, right? But oh so valuable. So I can actually see from that what they want, what the purpose of the call is for them, because I know the purpose of the call for me is to tell them if they haven't yet purchased or to confirm that I want to work with them. But I would recommend that you set yourself up for that as well. Now, there's an entire script that you should go through when you're on a phone consultation so that you from the very beginning take control, so that you from the very beginning set up the expectation about this phone call. What usually happens on these calls is I start, you ask questions, I will inject and give you some ideas for how we'll work together, what that will look like, and then I will make my recommendation about the best package for you. And once you check out, then our journey will begin, and here's what to expect after you do that. Does that sound good? Something like that. So, details obviously I've left out, but you're telling them from the very beginning how it's going to go. And you say, does that sound good? Okay. Is it okay if I start? Go ahead and get started with the questions that I'd like. So you're asking them to give you permission, which suddenly makes them feel like they're in control. They feel good because when people feel like they're not in control, they're being railroaded, they're being sent down some path they didn't know they were going on, they will not be able to hear anything that you say. So they can't focus on the information you're giving them. They by the end of that phone call couldn't possibly make a decision to say yes because they don't even know what you said. So you have to put them at ease and you have to take all those distracting thoughts away by calming them down and letting them know they're in charge. And you do that by asking, "Is that okay? Would you like me to keep going?" And they say yes. What they've done then is taken some control, feeling at least as if they're in control. So, very important that you do that on a phone call. All right. So, next up, let's talk about this. Let's say you host a webinar or masterclass, depending on what you call it. About 15% of those people, right, are fast action takers. They're going to decide right then. Now, some of them may decide no, but 15%, if they're going to buy, will buy. And some will need more time. But you should also, at some point, if an email later, they're still undecided, offer a phone call then. Do the screening prior to it, though, and you'll learn a little bit more about what's holding you back. Is there one thing that if you knew it would make this decision an absolute yes? Those are great kinds of questions to ask either on your survey or on your phone call. If you're seeing clients in person right now, you can also present your fees and close the person in person, or there's always Zoom or Skype or FaceTime. All right, this is important. Don't skip this one. There is one offer. One. So the very first thing you want to do is get a yes. Now you might have two options. The two options would be you're doing my Flipping 50 specialist course, or you're doing the advanced Flipping 50 specialist course. Same information, but the advanced actually gives you the business in a box and you get a little bit more coaching in the private Facebook group. Right? So all I'm asking you to do first is decide yes. And that's what you want to do as well. You don't want to have two polarizing offers. So if you confuse, you lose. If you've made somebody stop and think, well, gosh, I don't know, do I really need this or do I need that? And you've given them two options instead of putting them together. So it's really key that you can always present one thing and then do an upsell, meaning after they've purchased, they put in their shipping information, they put in their address, they put in their credit card information, and they've clicked. The next thing they see could be an upsell. But wait, do you want to add this to your cart? So adding the second piece of whatever it was, potentially. And if it's directly tied, it makes them more successful easily. It should be a no-brainer. But this is where big clubs can sometimes make a big mistake. So, big clubs that launch numerous fitness programs to numerous target markets at once, they're constantly at risk for overwhelming, confusing, and they just vomit. I can say this because I was there. They just vomit the list of paid programs and hope that the right customer will find the right one they want. But they can't nurture those customers. So when I suggested you need a runway of emails, so the less someone knows you, or the more someone might feel like they're just a little speck in a great big club, and they're not working with one individual, but they might be working with whoever that trainer is teaching that class that they choose. You'll need to have a few emails. That will work so much better. But you can't have a few emails that incorporate a broad overview of a lot of classes and have any success doing that. You want to nurture that customer based on what they're thinking so that they can get to a yes. A whole lot of people who aren't the ideal target are also going to get those emails for big clubs unless you've segmented. So if you haven't already, start segmenting. If you serve, say, both men and women, segment. I mean, sure, there may be many times when you have something that works for both, but you may want to be sure when you're talking about menopause that you're sending that email to women who are in their 40s through their 70s, not to men or young college co-eds, that you're very specific. Decide on your one offer and make that offer irresistible. If you're collaborating with somebody, maybe you're co presenting in a masterclass or webinar, make sure that you're selling between the two of you one thing that the customer has to decide on. Now, you may think you don't know how to do that, that's too complicated. So you're going to put the work on the customer. That's not really great customer service from the very beginning. So it's always possible for you to make a special consideration. Let's say somebody reaches out and says, because you and a partner said, okay, we're going to put our two programs together. And instead of offering them each separately, like you could do this or you could do this, we're going to say, you get two of them, you get both of them for the low price of blah, blah, blah. And, both of you make a little bit less, but it's probably a sale you might not have made because you're exposed to their audience and they to yours. So still worthwhile, right? But you need to do that. And you may come across somebody who says, I'd like to do it, but I just need X. I already have Y. Can you work with me? Of course, you can grant somebody a special rate to do the program and only give them a portion of it. A single option, a single price. And I won't teach irresistible offers on this episode, meaning you've got to create urgency. You want to give special reasons why to get started right now, like bonuses that are going to go away, like the doors are going to close. But do let me know if you'd like a review of how to present irresistible offers. All right. So we've covered a lot of things. Let me go back and just summarize for you. There are really two parts to consider when we're thinking, how do I sell? How do I present my fear? When and where do I do it? It's literally where, meaning on what format. Are you going to do that by telephone? And if so, do you have a script? Do you know that you can close if you get someone to book a consultation call with you? The phone call is one, a master class is another, and then an in-person consultation, whether that literally is a one-on-one, maybe it's a fitness assessment, or whether it's on Zoom or Skype, if you're delivering your services that way, or it's just safer right now during COVID times. So there's that. Then it's how are you going to present that fee and when? So it depends on the runway of small price tags. You need less of a runway, an email or two, and you can probably go right for the sale. If it's something that's middle to higher price, you're going to need a series of 5 or 6 emails. If it's something really high priced, potentially, maybe you need a master class. So they spend maybe an hour with you and a follow up phone call. Maybe the masterclass encourages people interested to go to the phone call or those fast action takers to do the sale. So, those are ways to think about that's how you'll do it. And we'll talk a little bit more next time about literally what would you say? What words would you use? I hinted at that when I talked about pre-screening before your phone consultations, making sure that somebody is ready for making up their mind and making a decision is really important. We'll talk a little bit about how to present your fee, what to say, what words to avoid in an upcoming webinar. So if you're stuck, when you get to that point, we'll get you unstuck. All right. You'll find the show notes for today's episode at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/present your fee. So if you have questions, I'd love it if you drop them below the show notes. You can follow me over my shoulder and watch how I put these concepts into action at Flipping 50 TV, where I'm working with our Flipping 50 audience. But all the goodies about sales and marketing strategies for you are at fitnessmarketingmastery.com. What are you waiting for? The world needs us now more than ever.